Whew. And there we go. It took a lot of hard work, but I finally done it. Now that was a productive use of 2 weeks. I feel like there's something I forgot to do. Oh, yeah, I should probably get on that. Where did I put the game anyway? How'd you get... Oh, no, wait, yeah, I did set it there. Yeah, I should give Goombert a call. Do I always talk to myself out loud this much? Yeah, no, I don't care. Okay, technically, if you count the Sonic Movie 3 DLC video, it's only been 1 month. But now I'm ready to start actual work on the Transformers review. So what time do you think you'll be getting back? Wait, I thought you were on vacation. Okay, calling it a vacation is a bit of a stretch. I have been sort of productive. I recorded footage of the Transformers game. What can I say? I like to go the extra mile. I mean, I wasn't planning on doing the actual review when you get over here. It was just more so like a brainstorming ideas thing. Usually after I finish a big project, I like to take the time to play one game on my own to prevent burnout. And you know, I did buy Spider-Man Miles Morales a few months ago and haven't played it yet, so I think I'll just... do that after I finish the review. That's what I was gonna say. You didn't let me finish. Let's-a go. Welcome back to Shy Guy Gaming. It's been a while, hasn't it? But then again, would it really be on brand for me to not take 5 months to do the review? You try getting worked on a PC that has TF2 on the desktop. It's hard. In case you weren't aware, this is actually the 3rd episode in a series of reviews that I've been making on movie tie-in games. The last one of which came out 6 months ago. But I haven't been sitting on my butt doing nothing that entire time. I've only been doing that for the past month or so. During the time between the reviews, I've actually taken the time to do an entire Let's Play of this game, which you can check out by clicking this eye in the corner. Go ahead, go watch the whole thing. It shouldn't take you too long. Only about 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 45 seconds of your time. 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 14 seconds if you want to look at the extras, too. Time calculators. Specifically for that line in the script. Anyway, can I please continue with the review? The game isn't that long. You could probably beat it in an afternoon if you tried. It'll only take you around 3 hours to beat it on normal mode, and hard mode only took me a little bit longer than that at 5 hours, and that's only because I had to dedicate one of those hours to fighting.
Defend me! I am under attack!
What? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Taking the time to replay through the game actually reminds me of the little bit of history that I actually have with it. Like with the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game on Game Boy Advance, I actually did play this game when I was younger, but not quite this version of it. It's called an introduction. You can't just dive right into the game. You gotta give some backstory and background information, and then work your way into it. Let us begin. Let us begin. When I was younger, my family had a Wii. Why, yes, I did draw these myself. Thank you for noticing, you. Now, where was I? When I was younger, my family had a Wii, and we enjoyed playing it very much. Okay, if you must know, I draw most of my assets facing this way, but I drew the chair facing this way, so I had to flip it over. So yeah, the book is backwards. Let's see, had a Wii, liked playing it very much. Here we go. One day my dad took me and my brother... Hey, Goombert, remember when I said audience participation was welcome for this? Correct answer. Now shut up. My dad took me and my brother to Target and gave us permission to pick out a game for our Wii. I wanted to get Super Smash Bros. Brawl because we played it at our cousin's house and had a lot of fun with it, but my brother wanted to get Transformers Revenge of the Fallen for the Wii. Neither one of us would budge on the game that we wanted to get, insisting that ours was the better choice. Our dad eventually just ended up getting tired of our bickering and bought both, but let us know that he was very upset with us, and when you're that young, your parents' disapproval really stings. Well, it did until we got home and started playing the games. Then that disappointment just sort of washed away. And we did end up playing both of them quite a bit. We did progress a fair bit through the Transformers game, but we could never get past...
Me! I am under attack!
Megatron, you fight for nothing. That is why you will never win.
Huh? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, we never did end up beating the game, and many years later my brother just ended up selling it. And for a while, that was the end of my history with that game. The whole point of that story is that I still have that copy of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Suck it, Alex! I made the better choice! Also, congrats on your engagement. I'm very happy for you. That we are. So today, to finish off my movie tie-in games reviews, I will be taking a look at Transformers Revenge of the Fallen for PS2, which according to the back of the box that spontaneously popped into existence, I'm not sure I should even be touching this right now. This game is a unique Transformers trademark adventure developed exclusively for the PlayStation registered copyright 2 computer entertainment system. This is the same as the version on the Wii. We're off to a great start. When starting a new game, you're prompted to select a difficulty, normal or hard. The Let's Play I did on my channel was through hard mode, and I did a normal mode playthrough on my own time just to refresh myself for the review. And the only difference between these modes is that hard mode just makes the enemies tougher. They're exactly the same otherwise. And before I recap the story, there is one thing I do need to mention. Unlike the Unlike the first two games in the... Can I get a word in edgewise? You know, as annoying as that thing was, I am gonna have to fix that later. Unlike the first two games that I covered in this series, this game does not follow the events of the film it was made to promote. It follows the same rough story beats, but it omits certain elements and tries to tell its own thing most of the time. Heck, the Autobots spend half the game in Shanghai when that was only the opening scene of the film. And the human characters from the films just don't appear at all, other than a brief vocal cameo from Sam and Michaela at the end.
Optimus, man, it's good to hear your voice again, man. You don't know what it was like.
What now? I mean, everyone knows about you now. There's no more hiding.
Dang, I was really hoping to play a level of Sam getting ready for college when he has to fight Dickbot the Blender Guy. No, I didn't make that up. That's his actual name, for a reason that would be more evident if I didn't crop this image. Yeah, these films were weird. That's not to say the story is completely different from the films. There are several moments that are meant to pay homage to moments in the movie. Heck, they even reference one of the scenes in one of the cutscenes. Which is also how I found out that this thing had a name. That being said, if we took the time to point out every inaccuracy, we would be here for a week. Speaking of which, we should get into that now. Dang, that was a good segue. The opening of this game is about as close as it gets to faithfully adapting the film. Demolisher and Sideways are causing trouble in Shanghai, albeit for different reasons than they were in the movie, and it's up to the Autobots to stop them. The first level is called Optimus Invades. Strange name considering we're supposed to be the good guy, but whatever, and it has Optimus skydiving down to Shanghai, a scene ripped directly from the film. The first level is very different from the rest of the game. It has you in free fall throughout the entirety of the level, while you question why they had to drop you so far away from the ground. But you don't have time to wonder that for very long, because you also have to fight enemies during the fall. During this section, we get introduced to some of the basic controls, using the left analog stick to move around, using the right analog stick to aim your gun, R2 to shoot, and R1 to heal. So, embarrassing story that I already mentioned during the Let's Play. During my initial playthrough of the game for footage, I misread the button prompt as L1 and was pressing the wrong button the entire time, thinking it was just disabled on hard mode. L1 and R1 look similar, okay? Back to the level. After falling for a while, we reach this level's boss. And there are some massive air quotes around boss because this is just a regular enemy that they slapped a health bar onto. More specifically, this is Decepticon Captain Ranged. Yes, I am aware that is his enemy type, not his name, but it put this image in my mind, so I think it's funnier to say it's its name. But like I said before, this is just a regular enemy that you fight later in the game. You just shoot at him until he dies. That's it. After you beat him, the level ends and we land in Shanghai, which leads us right into the next level. Next up, we have Ironhide vs. Demolisher. This level is a lot more in line with what the rest of the game is, in that it is a third-person shooter sort of brawler stage. The movement control in these sections is perfectly fine and serves its purpose well. However, I can't always say the same about the camera. The camera is always at a fixed angle and is supposed to give you a good view of your action and where you're supposed to go. However, it is not without its issues. Sometimes the camera will change so abruptly that it will cause you to go back the way you just came from because of the direction that you're holding. And then at other points it tries to focus on you to the point where it obscures the path forward. I can't say it didn't do its job properly most of the time, but there's a reason it gave me the idea for the cameraman Jenkins. And in order to teach us the game's controls,
I detect more Decepticons.
a tutorial will pop
Let's start off with a light attack.
up every... First the alarm, now this. I cannot catch a break today. Yeah, these tutorials can get a little annoying. In order to teach you one of the game's mechanics, the game completely stops itself and has a character tell you what you need to do. Well, a button prompt shows up on screen and the character says something tangentially related to it in excruciating detail.
Using your environment to your advantage is critical, old friend. Use the jump button to clear objects and obstacles in your path. Fear not. If something appears too high, scan your surrounding.
Or not enough detail.
We cannot win the war with offense alone.
And then sometimes they just don't speak at all. But hey, at least it gives us a chance to learn more about this game's mechanics. Like blocking. This is kinda pointless. If you're even halfway competent at this game... Oh, you shut up! The enemies won't be dealing much damage to you, and any damage they do to you can be healed immediately if you have enough energon. Yeah, evading attacks is usually the better option than blocking them, and it's tied to the same button, you just have to be moving when you press it. You'll probably forget you can even block, because it isn't useful for most of the game. You know, until you get to...
Megatron, my ancient enemy.
Come, Prime. Let us end this once and for all.
Oh, right, we haven't talked about Energon yet. What? Yeah, I'm fine. Why do you ask? Anyways, you've probably noticed this pink bar underneath the health bar. That is the Energon meter. You have a finite amount of Energon, and doing certain actions will cause it to deplete. Those actions include healing using R1, which is perfectly okay to confuse with L1. It's a reasonable mistake. Anyone can make it. pressing up on the D-pad to power yourself up at the cost of taking more damage, pressing down on the D-pad to perform an attack with your character's vehicle mode, and finally, holding down L2 to unleash a charge shot from your cannon that can be charged up to 4 times, which also makes one of the most satisfying sounds I have ever heard. Ah, that just feels good to hear. Once the bar has been fully depleted, you do recharge a small sliver of it on your own, but it's only enough to charge your charge shot up 1 stage. So if you want to get stuff actually done, you'll have to actually replenish your energon. You can do this in 2 ways. The first is by finding these tubes in the level to fill it up, and the other is by simply beating enemies. There are multiple enemies in the game that can be divided into 4 classes: ranged warriors, melee warriors, sergeants, and captains. Ranged warriors are these jet guys that blast you from far away. Melee warriors are these vans that, well, as the name implies, get up close and personal and try to attack you. These ones can actually block your attacks, so the game uses them to teach you how to shield break, which I found myself using very often throughout my playthroughs. And then the sergeants and captains are very unique in that each of them have multiple variants. The captains keep it simple, they have melee and ranged variants. The sergeants have those, and also a third type called the tactician that I'll get into later. I don't think the different enemy types give you a different amount of energon. I think they just boil down to a roadblock that you might have to shoot at more than another one. And one more important thing of note that you've probably noticed are these glowing Autobot icons. These are the collectible extras. This is something that I love to see in any game. Collecting these will allow you to look at the game's concept, art, and models on your own time. The extras in this game are really something I enjoy looking at. I'll talk more about those later. As for the actual level, after fighting your way through the streets and some rooftops, you'll eventually make it to a construction site and the game's first actual boss, Demolisher. During the first 2 phases, you can only damage him by hitting these parts behind his arms that are glowing blue. And these parts are not visible until he takes a wide swing at you. After dealing enough damage, you'll have to do a quick time event to attack the tire above his head. After doing that twice, you'll enter the final phase where you can damage him by shooting at his head at any time, but now his attacks have a shockwave to them. But if you keep shooting at him, he'll eventually go down after you do a quick time event. It was an okay boss fight, but I'm noticing this game is using QuickTime events a lot. I sure hope this doesn't become a crutch that it relies on too much. I also really hope that one of the boss fights in the future doesn't use this too much to hide the fact that it has no depth whatsoever. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, 1 down, 1 to go. We start Bumblebee's level, Pursuit over Shanghai, where we have to chase down Sideways. Remember how Bumblebee's whole gimmick in the films is that he lost his voice and has to speak through the radio? Well, in this game, he can talk.
I'm still on Sideways. Send coordinates now. All 3 units converge. I'm on his 6.
Because reasons. Well, regardless of those reasons, we are now playing as Bumblebee. Something that I like about this game is that each of the Transformers controls slightly different from each other. For instance, Bumblebee feels like he moves a bit faster than Ironhide did. The start of the level takes place on the streets, but quickly moves to the rooftops of the skyscrapers of Shanghai. Because of that, there's a lot of parts of this level where you can easily fall off. Heck, there's an achievement for getting through the level without falling off the rooftops. And for some reason, they were really sneaky with hiding the collectibles in this level. Like, look at this!
Form up on Bumblebee! I see them! Didn't think there'd be so many.
How the heck is anybody supposed to know about that? Eventually, you'll catch up to Sideways and the level will end, leading us to the next level. And this gives me a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, you don't have to say every rude comment that comes to your mind, right? Fair enough. The next level is Sideways Goes to Ground, and we're not playing as the Autobots this time. We're playing as the Decepticons. That's right, we get to play both sides of this story. This is frickin' Transformers Adventure 2 now! And unlike the previous 2 levels, this one isn't a beat-em-up. We are playing as Sideways as he drives through the streets of Shanghai at high speed while evading Nest and the Autobots. Pressing X lets you accelerate, and pressing square lets you brake. But why the heck would you need to brake? We're trying to escape from the police. The giant robots. We're actually transformed. Dang! Never mind, I see the value. The first part of the level has you speeding through the roads while avoiding other cars. Throughout the entirety of the level, Bumblebee will appear from behind you and start shooting at you. In order to combat him, you have to press down on the D-pad to transform back into robot mode. This gives us use of our weapons, so we're able to shoot at him until he spins out, allowing us to go back to driving recklessly. One thing I like about playing as the Decepticons is that the developers took the time to create parallels for everything. Now the collectibles are red Decepticon logos, and every enemy type has an Autobot equivalent. We have to drive around the Autobot jet guys, fighting the Decepticon jet guys, oncoming traffic, outgoing traffic, Bumblebee, and trying to get these collectibles even if it kills us. I can't help it. It's like an itch in my brain that can only be scratched if I grab them, regardless of if it's pointless or not. I really like how this level takes advantage of the IP and its gimmick. These are Transformers, so you'd think there would be more levels where they'd be using their transformations to more effectively navigate the terrain, but no. Most of the time, they're just running around punching and shooting things. Even when transforming would make much more sense. Like it's something they can do naturally. Why don't they do it more? I don't know. I can't change back, and this hurts a lot. Please take me to the hospital. I'd like to retract my prior critique. That was a horrific experience, and I would not wish it on my worst enemy. Anyways, as the level progresses, the roads get closed down and more enemies will begin to show up. After driving for a while, we end up being saved by Starscream at the end of the level and making our escape. Sideways was actually supposed to die at the end of the Shanghai sequence, but given that that's been changed, I assume they have bigger plans for him later on in the plot. This also marks the end of Act 1. There are 5 acts in total in the game, and they for whatever reason did not distribute the levels evenly between them. Act 2 starts off with a scene of the Fallen in the Decepticons' base. They also, for whatever reason, hide his face as if that's going to be a big reveal later, but the game is so polygonal and jagged that shapes are pretty hard to distinguish, so big reveal, he's an oval! We also get another big change from the film, with Starscream reviving Jetfire off-screen in this version of events. Somehow. The scene ends with Sideways and Starscream departing so that they can retrieve their next objective. Which leads us to our next level, Starscream's Path. Another Decepticon mission and another vehicle mission. But this vehicle mission is a fair bit different from the last one. As the level's name implies, we are playing as Starscream now, so we are flying through the skies for this one. As a jet, we fly forward by default, and pressing X will boost you forward rapidly. Pressing square will let you make sharper turns with a knife's edge. Circle lets you barrel roll like that rabbit from a game I've never played tells you to do. Except that's actually an aileron roll. R2 is shoot, and L2 fires missiles at the cost of energon. And just like in the prior levels, yeah, the game stops everything for Soundwave to tell you all this in excruciating detail. Well, it stops everything but the water for some reason. He does it so much it even starts to annoy Starscream.
I'll execute something all right.
And just like the prior level, you transform by pressing down on the D-pad, but unlike the prior level, this is to give you a view of behind you so that you can deal with enemies that attack you from the rear. Also, I just gotta say, this camera angle did not do this poor soldier any favors. That is a face that not even a mother could love. Okay, I'm not ugly. I wear this mask because it's a family tradition. I was born in this mask, and I will die in this mask. Please refrain from using profanity. The sensor is broken in case you forgot. After flying for a while, you'll land on some of these aircraft carriers for brawl or shooter segments that you have to destroy generators in to continue. You'll have to do this 3 times before we reach the final portion. And also during these sections, you'll realize just how repetitive the dialogue is.
Stop the fool! Do you know who I am? Stop the fool! Do you know who I am? Stop the fool! Do you know who I am?
The final portion has you flying around these large generators. You just have to shoot at them until they blow up. There are 5 in total, and enemies show up to shoot at you starting at the second one, but you'll probably get about 80% of an individual one's health before the enemies even arrive. Overall, not that challenging. The next level is From the Depths. This time we're playing as Sideways, and we get in on the action as we invade the platform to unearth a long-buried secret. Well, with a description like that, it must be some centuries-old artifact or something. Certainly not something that's been here for 2 years at the most. With this level, it's back to basics. Classic brawler shooter level, and I really like the way Sideways controls here. Like Bumblebee, Sideways has some pretty decent speed, and his melee attacks have a bit of range to them through the use of a mace-like weapon. This level's main gimmick is the introduction of these puzzles. You have to move these mirrors around to redirect a laser from this red box directly to this green box. They also really ease you into these puzzles. They start out really simple, but then as they go on, they get more and more complex. But don't be deterred. If you have enough determination, focus, and perseverance, you can overcome any obstacle in your path! You could also just press select to skip the puzzle altogether at any time. If you do press skip, it will call in enemies that you have to fight, but it's a minuscule obstacle. It makes me wonder why they even include the puzzles at all if they're going to include an option to skip them completely, with the only caveat being that if you do, you'll have to fight 2 more enemies that you've killed dozens of times already. But if you tough it out and solve all the puzzles without being a fudging coward, you get this neat in-game achievement. Really shows how smart you are. I'm too smart to engage in this conversation. Not according to my achievements, I'm not. After fighting our way through a good chunk of the level, you'll have to take a detour because a truck decided to randomly explode. And it's on this detour that we end up fighting the Autobot Captain enemies. These guys are white robots with orange accents that transform into rescue helicopters. Just like the character Blades from Rescue Bots, a show that came out 2 years after this game.
Coincidence? I think.
Yeah, probably. After solving a few more puzzles and fighting off more enemies, we eventually reach the end of the level and unearth the long-buried secret. Megatron's body. Boo, they lied to us. And with this done, you're probably wondering, what's next for Sideways, huh? Heck if I know, he just sort of pieces out and doesn't show up for the rest of the game. On to the next part. Act 2 ends with Megatron being repaired and revived at the Decepticon base. Starscream breaks the news to him that he's no longer their commander, which he takes.
Sorry, Lord Megatron, but I don't answer to you any longer.
You answer only to me!
Well, he could have taken it a bit better. That's when the Fallen shows up and reveals that he's the one in charge. So Megatron immediately decides to fall in line and follow his orders. Did I miss a page or something? In the film's version of events, Megatron was the Fallen's disciple, so it made sense that he was following his orders there. But the game's continuity depicts this as their first time meeting. And despite that, Megatron just accepts that this guy that he's never met before is his new boss, despite being completely willing to murder the guy who told him he wasn't in charge 10 seconds ago. This power-hungry mad titan of a machine just gets told that this guy is his new boss, and he believes that he is who he says he is. And he just accepts that and moves on? Well, me complaining about it isn't going to change this incredibly out-of-character writing, so I'm going to follow Megatron's example and move on to something completely different. Like the voice acting in this game. The voice acting in this game is pretty good. They even got some of the actors from the film to reprise their roles as some of their characters. Peter Cullen as Optimus, Jess Harnell as Ironhide, and Charlie Adler as Starscream. And even though Bumblebee was mute in this film, they actually brought back Mark Ryan, the actor who played him for 2 lines at the end of the first film. But a lot of characters got replacement actors for the game. Instead of Hugo Weaving, Megatron is played by Frank Welker, the actor who played him in the 80s cartoon. James Arnold Taylor plays the Fallen instead of Tony Todd, and Peter Jessup stepped in as Soundwave for Frank Welker. He's already in the game. Why would you cast another actor if... You know what? It's fine. Probably just a weird one-off thing that they did. Oh, and I almost forgot. Clive Revel plays Jetfire instead of Mark Ryan, the actor who plays Bumblebee in this game. Make it make sense! Huh. You know, when you put it like that, it actually does kind of make sense. Well, like I said before, the voice acting in this game is pretty good. Frank Welker especially hits it out of the park as Megatron. You can really feel the emotion when he speaks.
I was dead, and now I am angry!
Honestly, understandable. I'd be pretty pissed too if someone killed me. You get a gold star, Frank. Back to the actual game, the next level is the Devastator. Also, I'm just going to point this out, Devastator is the only character in the game that has a moving mouth. Yeah, you've probably noticed this already, but none of the characters' mouths move when they talk. Now, with Optimus you can get away with this because they always have his mask up, but there are characters with clearly defined mouths on their models that just have close-ups of them talking and their mouths are just completely static. It's just something weird that I wanted to point out. And for the first time since the first level, we get to play as Optimus now, except now in an actual brawler shooter segment. Took you long enough, we're about halfway through the game. I'm also noticing some cut corners here because this opening section of Optimus's level is reused from Ironhide's level. Well, with the exception of this.
Target identified. Have visual on Devastator.
I don't remember that being in Ironhide's level. Devastator wastes no time showing up in the level. And we waste no time learning his name. When did we find out this information? It's immersion breaking is what it is. When we first encounter him, he'll create this wind funnel with his mouth, and when you get sucked in, you'll have to perform a QuickTime event in order to escape. There's also a combat section that introduces us to the Sergeant enemies. The Sergeants are a very unique enemy. The Autobahn Decepticon variants each have unique abilities. The Decepticons, for instance, are able to turn their melee warriors into suicide bombers. So your best bet is to try and take those out before they take you out. But after dealing with them, we're introduced to a new mechanic that we will need to beat Devastator. You're going to have to push these blocks into the path of his wind funnel to jam his mouth. And with this new knowledge, we begin the actual boss fight against him. The first phase has us jump onto these roofs and shoot at his head. You'll have to avoid his swings and the shockwaves along with his rockets, which he fires at you aggressively. And when I say aggressively, I mean these things will lock onto you even if you haven't made it onto the roof yet. After a few swings, his hand will get stuck in the ground, so you'll have to do a QuickTime event to stab him in the eye. This takes us to the next phase, where we are on a bridge and he is standing very far away. You'll have to trick him into firing rockets at you that will hit these columns that you can knock down onto him, all the while fighting a few enemies. After you knock down 2 columns onto him, it becomes just like the first phase. Shoot his head, shockwaves, swings, rockets, QTE, now both his eyes are on fire, which leads us to the final section in a construction site. During this phase, attacking him directly will not work. You'll instead have to push these canisters onto this pink spot to charge them and then shoot them when he sucks them up. You'll have to do this twice in total, and if he sucks it up before you charge it, you'll just have to wait for them to drop you another canister. It's also here where we find out why this game is rated T for teen.
Looks like the big fella could do with one last spoonful. Open wide.
That's it. That's the only reason this game isn't E10+, because Ironhide used a hard swear once. After sucking up the 2 canisters, he's still hungry apparently, so he sucks up the charge spot too. And once you shoot him, the level is over. But not before he digs up the artifact that the Decepticons were looking for. Why are all of these in Shanghai? This is probably one of the better bosses in the game, but it's still nothing to write home about. I wouldn't even say any of these bosses are particularly memorable. With the exception of... maybe.
Lucky shot. Megatron is wounded.
Doing what? Forget about it. The level ends with them sending the artifact off to a secure location and then wondering where Bumblebee is. This is because during the level, Bumblebee was captured by Starscream, who decided not to kill him and take him prisoner instead. Why did he spare Bumblebee when he's been killing every other Autobot he comes across? Because plot. Bumblebee is taken back to the Decepticon base, where Megatron mocks Starscream for only capturing Bumblebee, despite the fact that Megatron hasn't done anything of value since he has woken up. Even the Fallen recognizes this. He just spends most of the scene mocking Megatron and roasting him for his failures.
Because of your poor leadership, Devastator has been destroyed.
I led generations of Decepticons into war without help or orders from anyone.
A war you failed to win.
Leave it to me, my lord.
The last time it was left to you, We had to retrieve your defeated scraps from the bottom of the ocean.
Vengeance is a strong motivator.
Vengeance welcomes mistakes, of which you have met your quota.
The Fallen then declares that Megatron has to prove his worth once more. He decides to do this by using the freshly captured Bumblebee, who they did not kill on sight for some reason, as bait to lure Optimus to the base, so that he may properly deal with him. And so Optimus gears up for a full frontal assault on the Decepticon base, but before that, we get to play Bumblebee's level. Bumblebee breaks free. Spoiler alert much? Well, doesn't really warrant a spoiler alert because it's not true. Jetfire shows up and frees Bumblebee. How did Jetfire escape? Don't know. They gloss over that completely. That's racist, Goombert. Be better. I feel like we're getting off topic. Let's get back to the game. Jetfire just gives us a massive exposition dump about the Fallen's plan, with the Star Harvester blowing up the sun, making new Decepticons, and it goes on for so long that even Bumblebee seems to get annoyed by it.
Now can we go?
That depends. Are you done monologuing?
Getting into the actual level, we have to fight our way through multiple floors of the Decepticon base to make it to the hangar so that we can get an escape pod to warn Optimus about the Fallen's plan. And this is another level that relies heavily on the laser puzzle that was in Sideways' platform stage. The defenses in this level are brutal. You gotta fight through turrets and a massive amount of Decepticon soldiers, which, you know what, that makes sense. This is their base. It wouldn't make any sense if they were completely absent. But other than that, there's not really anything to note in this level, so let's move on to the next one, Megatron's Glory. The Decepticon soldiers are completely absent in this level, as the Autobots have stormed the base. Okay, well, they're not completely absent. We passed two guys.
It's gonna cost you, Decepticon.
One guy on our way through. I guess everybody else is on their lunch break or something. This level largely follows the same structure and design as Bumblebee Breaks Free, only without the laser puzzles, which makes sense. This is our base, we would easily have clearance to access these areas. What I want to know is, why do all the Autobots have access to this area? Where are all of our guys? Yes, I'm gonna keep harping on it. It doesn't make sense. After fighting our way through our own base, we eventually make it to the hangar and we get the boss fight of this level, Optimus Prime. The fight against Optimus actually has quite a bit going on during it. One of the major obstacles during this fight is that Optimus has this drone that will shield him from projectiles and heal any damage that you do to him. And on top of that, he even has various enemies backing him up, so the first thing you gotta do is get rid of those. We accomplished this by destroying the supports that surround the arena. Doing this not only eliminates the regular enemies, but also activates the Decepticon defense systems that causes two lasers to shoot out from the center column and sweep the floor. In order to beat Optimus, you'll have to knock him into these lasers 3 times to destroy the drone. But if you get hit by the lasers, you'll be drained of your energon, making you easy pickings for Optimus. Once the drone goes down, it's a battle of brute force. You just have to hit him until his health bar goes down. But he's also amped up during this final phase. It's a pretty decent fight, probably the best one in the game. I hope they do more boss fights like these, but at the same time, I hope they don't make them too difficult. The scene that follows is meant to adapt Optimus's death from the film, but it doesn't quite hit the same beats because, well, I'll talk about that in a second. The Fallen, who has apparently been watching off-screen the whole time, commends Megatron for a job well done before using the frickin' Force to pick up Optimus and throw him aside. He then commands Megatron and Starscream to go recover the last artifact. Bumblebee and Jetfire mourn Optimus's death, placing his body in an escape pod for a proper burial, aka shoot him at a random spot on the planet and move on. I guess. Anyways, Jetfire follows Megatron and Starscream to spy on them while Bumblebee goes to warn the Autobots of the Fallen's plan, and neither of them bothered to check if Optimus was actually dead because he is still alive. All they had to do was wait with him for a couple minutes for him to wake back up. But we had to believe he was dead so that they could shoot him into a random spot on Earth, which happens to be Cairo, Egypt, where the climax of the game will be. It just happens. Catching up with the Decepticon side of the story, we play the level Starscream's Path. You'd think I'd have more to discuss with this. I mean, it is the last vehicle mission in the game, but it's more or less the same as the prior Starscream vehicle mission. Well, the scenery's different, at least. Instead of an Atlantic platform, we're invading a military base, so we see icebergs and an island base, but other than that, it's more or less the same gameplay, except they throw a lot more enemies at you. Well, it's the same until the very end, where we face the final obstacle of this level. Once we reach the base, we have to fight a massive version of the Cybertronian turrets that we fought in previous levels. You fly towards it at great speed, dodging its lasers, before you eventually reach it and take it on in robot mode. It just boils down to avoiding its fire and shooting at it until it explodes, and once it's destroyed, the level's over. I actually ran into a weird glitch when I played this for my Let's Play. My reticle got stuck on the left side of the screen, so I wasn't able to fight back. That feels like it should have come up in testing. But once the level's over, we move on to the next one. Megatron's Onslaught, and that is a very accurate title for what happens here. You tear through just about everything in this level. Nest, the Autobots, and several enemies' wills to live. A lot of the enemy AI in this game isn't very good. Multiple times throughout my multiple playthroughs, enemies just stood there and let me kill them without fighting back. In some cases, they've even thrown themselves off of ledges. Well, as we continue to fight through the enemy forces and the occasional lobotomy victim, we make our way through structures that we actually flew past during Starscream's level, which is a nice bit of continuity. We eventually make our way into the base, which is where we fight the Autobot Sergeant Tacticians. I still don't know what they do. Are they shielding their allies? Are they healing them? Are they making them invincible? I don't know. I never will. Kill them and move on. After bashing our head against several of the vents on the ceiling, we meet the greatest boss in the game. Nay, in all of video games. A door. This battle will put you to the test. You have to keep shooting the door, and you are interrupted by enemies. Honestly, the game kinda peaks here. And after defeating that very powerful adversary, we find a freight elevator that will take us to 2 circular rooms where you have to fight a massive amount of enemies and the camera. But after defeating that Herculean task and all those enemies, we make it to the room with the artifact. The artifact is locked in some laser cage, and the only way to get it is to do these 2 laser puzzles that the game tells us we only have 30 seconds to complete. That is a lie. You can take as long as you want. It took me much longer than that to solve both of these puzzles, but I didn't give up. I persevered. #smart. Maybe they meant 30 seconds between ending one puzzle and starting the other, but I don't think there's any way to do that naturally. These things are right next to each other, so you would have to be intentionally wasting time for that to happen. Anyways, pick up the artifact if the game will let you. This was another area of the Let's Play that had a glitch in it. Backtrack to the hangar, break a few more vents on the way for good measure, and find a new way out. We exit at the top of the dam and end the level with a fight against Captain Ranged. A pretty good level overall. And now that they have the final artifact, the Decepticons head to the Star Harvester, with Jetfire following closely behind them, as they head to Cairo, Egypt. This leads us to the next level, Jetfire's Gift, where Megatron realizes that thing that has been following them for almost 4,000 miles was not a giant metal bird, so he shoots it down. I know, right? Speaking of oblivious, Jetfire senses Optimus's weak energon signal that he couldn't sense on the ship when he was right in front of him because we needed to think he was dead, and begins to make his way towards the pyramid to save him. We also get text from our omnipotent guide Ironhide, who not only knows this number, but knows that Optimus is also at the pyramid and alive. Maybe, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse to ignore lazy writing when I see it. We're now playing as Jetfire as we make our way through Cairo, the land of the sturdiest buildings known to man. Seriously, look at this. He is 5 times the size of this hut, and it just bears it all. But second to those huts' strength is Jetfire. He is probably the strongest character in the game. He knocks enemies back far when he hits them. This level is pretty much just a gauntlet. Every room is blocked off by one of these gates that will only lower if you defeat all the enemies in the area. Because that would make sense, and if any of the things I've gone over are any indication, that is something this level is actively avoiding. After fighting our way through enemies and defeating some turrets, we make it to the pyramids, where Starscream finds Optimus.
You shouldn't have signaled for help.
Wait. Optimus signaled for help? But Jetfire said he picked up his energon signal. That sounds different from a distress call. Which is it? Make it make sense! Well, regardless of that, Jetfire saves Optimus from Starscream, so he could shoot him himself! Yeah, just kidding. After this flash of light that lasts longer than 10 seconds, we see that just like in the film, Jetfire sacrificed himself to give Optimus the upgrade he needed to take on the Fallen. And with that, Optimus gives a speech and it's on to the next level. But first, Megatron, Starscream, and the Fallen make their way to the pyramid to get the Star Harvester ready. Not entirely sure how they're going to do that since Devastator's dead, so they're going to have to dig this thing out themselves, and that's going to take... seconds, because I guess they could have just done that the whole time. And obviously, since Optimus is back in fighting shape and souped up for battle, they make us play as Ironhide now. We don't get to play as Optimus until the next level. Short what? Yeah, I don't care. First, we have to go through Ironhide's stand. Optimus starts referring to himself in the third person and is unable to reach the Star Harvester due to the cannon protecting it, so he tasks Ironhide with destroying it. This level is basically one last hurrah. It's the last normal level in the game. Kind of poetic considering Ironhide was the character with the first normal level in the game. It's like poetry, it rhymes. But there really isn't much to talk about during this level. I could talk about how you start out in the city and make your way through temples and ruins, but that just goes over the location. Gameplay-wise, this is pretty much just a recap of everything that we've gone through so far, fighting waves of enemies, beating large groups to open doors. It doesn't really give us anything new to talk about, unless you count this frickin' bullet sponge of a cannon. You have to destroy this to beat the level, but there's no visual indication of how much damage you've done to it. Yeah, this thing doesn't get a health bar, but the frickin' door does! Obviously, because the door was the most important part of the game. After destroying the cannon, we get ambushed by Megatron and saved by Optimus, leading to... the worst level in the entire game. Oh, please excuse me for 1 second.
Welcome to the home of the Yamada family.
I just went to put on a different mask so I didn't have to draw that crack on a bunch of different assets. Anyways, back to the review. Prime's Return. This level sucks. Some things warrant it, like describing how this dog level is. You've been on my bad side for a long time, you sack of... I am so sorry, that was unwarranted, and I cannot apologize enough for that. No, it's not fine. Remembering this level gives me a lot of stress, and I took that out on you, and... Don't apologize. I'm the one who did something wrong. If you apologize, it's gonna make me feel worse. I'm the one who said something he probably shouldn't have. You know what? Yeah. That sounds good. Again, sorry for blowing up at you like that. You didn't deserve that at all. Alright, where were we? Yeah. Prime's Return is just a boss fight against Megatron, and that boss fight is the 8th layer of hell. This boss is so abysmal that I would go as far as to say it's probably the most frustrating boss I've ever fought in any of the games that I've ever played. The other bosses in the game were a bit more scripted. Each phase of the fight was a little different, and you would have to adapt your strategy as the fight went on. Not here! Every phase of this fight is the same. He tries to punch you, you have to block, then you attack him. That's it! And if you aren't blocking because most of the enemies in this game went down pretty easily, well, have fun dying in 10 seconds. His attacks deal so much damage, whereas your attacks only chip off bits and pieces of his health. This is a frickin' war of attrition. You could have the patience of a frickin' saint, and this level will still piss you off with how long it takes. Oh, and it's not just a great offense that he has a great defense too. Similar to Optimus's fight in Megatron's Glory, Megatron has one of those drones that will shield him from projectiles. You can fire a couple of shots before the shield goes up, but after that, it starts protecting him and it's right back to punching. After every fourth of his health bar depleted, he goes into this invulnerable state where he sends some Decepticons in to fight you. And after you beat them, well, it's right back into the fire! Once you reach his final phase, the shield is gone, but you'll be so ingrained in this strategy that you won't even notice. You'll just keep blocking and punching, because you've been taught that if you don't do that, he will kill you in seconds. At least, that was my experience when I first fought him. Like I said before, I did another playthrough on normal mode just to refresh myself, and I beat him the first try using the same strategy, as opposed to the 20 tries that it took during my Let's Play. Dare I say, I didn't hate it as much then. It reminded me of how I felt about 2 levels from Shadow the Hedgehog, Lost Impact and the Doom, where when I first played them, I hated them, but when I went back to replay them, I found them easier after learning their ins and outs, and even found myself enjoying them quite a bit. So taking that all into account, was I too hard on the Megatron fight? No, in fact, I'd go as far as to say I was too soft on these levels.
Nice throw!
And take Mad Matrix with you.
Nice spare!
Figuring out how to work around the BS doesn't mean that the BS isn't there anymore. I described this fight best during my Let's Play. Bad, tedious, and boring. I honestly couldn't tell you the difference between the times where I managed to pull it off and the times where it failed. It's just an unenjoyable boss, and I'm glad I never have to do it again. And with Megatron defeated, it's time to confront the Fallen. The final showdown. We see the Fallen open up a portal before getting interrupted by Optimus, with Megatron and Starscream getting sucked into the portal, and we just don't see them again until the end of the game. Also, what the heck is this animation of Starscream carrying Megatron? Now, after the Megatron fight, my standards of what a good boss fight was were so much lower that it was anything that wasn't that. But after looking at this fight more critically, this is probably the most lazily designed boss in the entire game. Of course, they all look terrible compared to Dor, the goat. The first phase of the boss has you run across a stretch of land. Dodging pyramid chunks that he throws at you with the Force, this guy has frickin' midichlorians in his system, while also grabbing the collectibles that I need to satiate my crippling addiction. Once you reach him, the real battle begins. For his first phase, he opens 4 portals around the arena, and you have to trick him into firing his frickin' Hadouken into them. But don't get too close, otherwise he'll just punch you in the face. But if you get too far away, he'll stomp on the ground and do a fiery shockwave. So you have to stay just the right distance away from him and in front of one of these portals. If he fires a blast into the portal, it'll come out of another one and hit him, stunning him and giving you the chance to attack him. Portals disappear after he shoots into them, so you can't stand in the same spot the entire time. It's a pretty basic, but neat way to start the battle. But after doing the portal thing 3 times, you move on to the next and final phase at the peak of the Star Harvester. He doesn't shoot his fireballs anymore, but he still does the melee attacks and fire stomp. In order to deal damage, you have to just brute force it and punch him. After a few hits, it initiates a short quicktime event. Failing it makes him kick you away, but by beating it, it gives you a chance to whittle away at his health a little bit. And then, you just keep doing that repeatedly until he dies. In case you hadn't figured it out, which, I was being very subtle about, this was the boss I was hinting at earlier, where they just used quicktime events to hide how little there is to the fight. And they didn't do a very good job because, well, there isn't much to the quicktime events either. Sure, the first 2 buttons are different each time, but they always end in mashing X, and the animation is the same every time. You could have at least put in a couple of unique looks, maybe one based off of this scene. It's bad enough I had to trudge through fudging heck to get this far. I'm trying to calm down, and fake profanity doesn't rile me up as much. The fight itself is so lackluster that I would have been disappointed if I still wasn't riding the euphoric high from beating Megatron. Megatron is still easily the worst boss in this game, no question, but that goes without saying. Comparing these two is like comparing watching paint dry for 7 minutes to being kicked in the balls for an hour straight. But with the Fallen defeated, Optimus flies him into the Star Harvester, somehow without also killing himself, ending his conquest once and for all. We get a brief wrap-up scene, the Autobots rebuilding the pyramids because they're nice like that. We get a phone call from the human characters who didn't want to be in the game, and Megatron and Starscream take control of the Fallen's base and army. Okay, the alarm is still broken, so I'll have to do this myself because I feel obligated to. That concludes the story mode portion of the review, but there are still a few more things to cover, like arena mode! I cannot cover arena mode. I do not have someone to play it with me in the present, but I do recall playing it a little bit with my brother back when he first got this game, on the Wii. We initially thought it would be fighting each other, kinda like the Force Unleashed's dueling mode, but it was actually the two players teaming up to fight waves of enemy. All I remember was we played this mode once and never touched it again, so not much to discuss. Why not, is the better question. There's also the feats. These are just in-game achievements, something you could try to go for if you're bored. Some of them are even level-specific, such as sinking submarines in Starscream's levels, not falling off the roof in Bumblebee's Shanghai level, or, not skipping the laser puzzles. #smart. But the real cream of the crop are the different galleries. Each of those collectibles that we were gathering throughout the main game are actually keys that will unlock a different piece in the gallery. We can take a look at character models, concept art, and even random promotional art for Generation 1 that was mixed in with the concept art for some reason. I don't know that reason, but it's there. Speaking of Generation 1, over the course of the game, you'll unlock 3 whole episodes of the 80s cartoon. Thankfully, you get the last one before you fight Megatron, so even if you can't beat him, you still get to enjoy these. The extras in this game are a great inclusion and go a long way to redeeming it for making me fight Megatron for an hour. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen on PS2 is certainly an interesting case. Despite drastically changing the story of the film that it's adapting, I'd describe it as the epitome of what one would think of when they think of a movie tie-in game. At its highest points, it's serviceable and inoffensive. At its lowest points, it's downright infuriating. But taking it all in at once, the game just averages out to being simply that. Average. When I decided to do this series of 3 movie tie-in game reviews, I chose these games at random, pretty much. One of them I chose because it was a childhood favorite. The other I chose because, again, got it for like $5 at Walmart. But this one, I'm not sure why I chose it. Sure, there was some familiarity with it, because I played it with my brother. But other than the second to last level, which I have gone on at length about, this game doesn't really leave that much of an impact on me. But at the same time, I'd be remiss to just dismiss it wholesale. Because while sure, it does fall short in some places, it also did a pretty good job in others. The characters control pretty well, the locations are neat, and in my opinion, the extras are really cool. So when you look at it all together, it's just fine. And you know what? That's all it needed to be. But even with all that said and done, I think we can all agree that getting this instead of Super Smash Bros. Brawl would have been a terrible choice. That's right, I'm still rubbing it in your face, Alex. And with that, I have reviewed all the games I wanted to. It feels kind of refreshing and fulfilling. It certainly took a lot longer than I would have liked, but I chalked that up to poor time management. I can't deny that. Thanks, Goombert. I can always count on you to help do what's right for me. Yeah. It was actually kind of fun doing these reviews, but I don't think I'm going to do another one anytime soon. I'll probably stick to Let's Plays for a while, but I do have some ideas for one-off videos I want to try to do in the future. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a massive backlog that I need to work through. Thanks again for watching Shy Guy Gaming. See you next time! What about it? I played it, it's average, I'm moving on. Oh yeah. Nah, I don't really care. That was more or less the idea, yeah. You wanna play Super Smash Bros. Brawl?